Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Or good morning, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to class. This is the third session in our business analysis learning series. And from the beginning up to this point, we've had this is the third session, right? We are still looking at the introductory aspect of business analysis, right? So we looked at what business analysis mean, what a business analyst does, the role of a business analyst. Interestingly, also, we've looked at the key competencies, the underlying competencies and skill sets. That is the hard skills, the soft skills, the tools and technologies that you are expected to know how to use, the skills you're expected to have as a business analyst, right? So we are still somewhere around level one of this entire learning series. I'll call it module one, where we are still introducing the concept, introducing the basic and foundational concepts of the field, right? In today's session, we'll be looking at the knowledge areas within business analysis. I remain your humble facilitator, Victor Ndukwe, and I am a business analyst with 5 years experience in the field, right? And I think I am well equipped to walk you through this journey. So just hold your hands with me and let's get on this journey, right? If you're yet to subscribe to the channel, kindly do so, and also share these videos that you've seen, these videos I've put out, share with your friends. There are so many people that have reached out to me that they want to learn business analysis, and this is one of the reasons I'm taking the time to put out this content, to make these videos. So please, I would like you to share it with them. I would like you to engage, ask questions in the comment section, area of clarifications where you'll be needing clarifications, just ask away and I'll be right there to help. Then share with your friends, and also click the notification bell so that once I drop any video, you would be the first to get notified, right? So today, like I had mentioned, on Victor TV, which is the name of our channel, we'll be looking at the 6 business analysis knowledge areas, right? So business analysis have the key competencies, knowledge areas, the techniques, the perspectives, right? So we've looked at the key competencies, right, in the previous video. Now you're going to be looking at the knowledge areas, and in the subsequent videos, we'll be looking at the techniques and the perspectives of business analysis. So let's dive right into it. What are the business analysis knowledge areas? So the business analysis knowledge areas are 6, right? They are 6 in number. And if you can recall, I'd mentioned that the body that guides the practice of business analysis globally is called IIBA, which is International Institute of Business Analysis, right? And they have a guideline, a framework, like a guide for all business analysts called the Business Analysis Book of Knowledge. Now, according to the Business Analysis Book of Knowledge, we have 6 key knowledge areas within the business analysis field. And the first one is business analysis planning and monitoring. You need to know these 6 knowledge areas, because whether you're writing the certification exams or you're learning business analyst to maybe become certified, or that is to have your CBAP, which is Certified Business Analysis Professional, or you are learning business analysis to change your careers, to become better, to solidify your understanding of the practice, right? You need to understand these knowledge areas, because these knowledge areas are what will define the competencies. They are what will define your day-to-day task that you are required to carry out as a BA. So once you understand each of these areas and the tasks within these areas, you become better equipped, right, to be able to carry out business analysis function within your team, within your organization, within your industry. So it is a knowledge that you should understand. It is something that you should know, right? And there's 6 in number. The first one is the business analysis planning and monitoring. This is where you plan the activities. You're going to see all of them in details. The next one is elicitation and collaboration, right? The next part of this would be the strategy analysis, right? Then we have requirements analysis and design definition. we have requirements life cycle management, right? And then we have solution evaluation. So we're going ahead to look at each of these knowledge areas one by one. We're going to look at the different tasks within them. In some cases, we'll look at some techniques that you can apply. Don't worry, we are going to learn about techniques also within this learning series, right? But before that, we are going to see some techniques that you can apply within these knowledge areas that would help you carry out your task or do your job as a BA professionally, right? And I know some terms or some words might seem a little bit ambiguous or vague. I am also promising that sometime within the week, we are going to have another session where we now look at frequent and common terms or words or phrases that are used within the business analysis field so that you can get familiar. Learning comes by hearing, and understanding comes by familiarity. So what you've heard about, what you know about, you get used to, right? And you get to understand. So we'll be going right straight into the first one, being business analysis, planning, and monitoring. So basically, what this area does is this area focuses on planning and monitoring the business analysis approach. That is the approach you want to take for your business analysis, your stakeholder engagement, and your documentation. Now, I'm going to explain this using an example. So, as a business analyst, your company is looking to build a system, and you've been hinted where the project manager has called for the first maybe project planning or project initiation workshop, and you are aware that you'll be working on this project as a business analyst. This is where the planning and monitoring knowledge area comes in. Here you focus on, as a BA coming on this project, what is the approach I am going to take on this project, right? How am I going to go about carrying out my business analysis function? There's this popular saying that if you fail to plan, you're doing what? You're planning to fail. So this is where all your planning happens, right? Oh, what approach will I take? Will I take this approach? Who are my stakeholders, right? How am I going to identify my stakeholders, right? This is you just making your work, the journey that you're going to go through as a BA on that particular project. This is you making it as easy as possible for yourself, right? Now you're planning, how will I communicate to my stakeholders, right? What is going to be the governance around this project, right? If newer changes are going to be coming, even after I've gathered my requirement, don't worry, we're going to understand what requirement is when we have this session on terms. But basically, just take requirements as the need that your stakeholders are going to give you, or the things that your stakeholders are going to give you for you to build for them, right? So your business planning and business analysis planning and monitoring is where you identify all of these things. You plan the documentations that you'll be needing. Oh, I need to write a BRD. I think at some point I'll need to draw process flows for my assist states or my to be state, all of this. And we have 5 major tasks that you do under the BA planning and monitoring knowledge area. The first one is to plan the business analysis approach. This is where at the start of new project, you have to consider the methodology you'll be using. Is it going to be a waterfall methodology? Is it going to be agile? Right? You plan the individual activities and the tasks. And what deliverables are you going to be giving out on this project, right? What are the artifacts? So basically, artifacts are like things that you like documentations that you'll be generating as a course of being a BA on this project. This is where you plan your approach, right? You map everything out strategically and tactically, map everything out that you're going to be doing. The next thing is to plan your stakeholder engagement. What you're going to be saying to your stakeholders, how you plan to communicate to them, when you plan to communicate to them, when will you be communicating to them, what will you be communicating to them at different points, right? Because each project will have different types of stakeholders. No two stakeholders are the same. You need to know the best way that work for your stakeholders. So this is where you plan how you're going to engage with them, right? And also, this is also what you plan to identify. This is where you plan to identify what you will need from them. This is also where you plan to know who your stakeholders are, and this is where you also plan to understand how you're going to engage them. Is it going to be Is it going to be a virtual meeting? Is it going to be a, what is it called now? Is it going to be a physical meeting, right? You plan all of this. Then the next task is the plan BA governance. This is where you also plan how the project will be governed, right? As a business analyst, this is where you plan how the project will be governed. So here you are ensuring that you are planning how prioritization will be done. So when new requirements come in, how are we going to prioritize? You already set that aside. It is not at the point when the project is already moving that you're now trying to understand how your prioritization would go. You're expected to have planned everything down. You're expected to have planned how you're going to make decisions, right? The decision making part of your project, right? You're supposed to have planned everything down. So everything around governance, everything around requirements management, everything about the risk that you've identified, you plan everything down. And why you're doing this is because you want to ensure that you have a successful project delivery. Remember, as a business analyst, the first thing that is in your mind is that you're an agent of change, right? And anything that would make you achieve change, successful change within your project is what you're entirely focused on, right? So these are things that would help you achieve that. The next task here is the planned business analysis information management. As a BA on any project, you will develop information. There will be information that will be developed within the course of that project. Your BRDs, your documentations, and everything. This is where you plan. Where will you store these documents? Who would have access to this document, right? What document will you even be generating? Your user story maps, your designs, different things. This is where you plan where they will be kept, because you'd accumulate lots of documentations and you need to have planned alongside um your other stakeholder engagement, governance, your approach. You also need to plan your information management. It's very key, because your stakeholders might need some information from you. They don't necessarily need to reach out to you to get this. There should be already a set up plan, right, that would show how this um, information can be accessed, how it can be retrieved, and how it can be well managed, right? Great. The next part is then to identify the business analysis performance improvement. So this is where you need to then also identify how you're going to improve your performance as a business analyst on any project. So this is basically how you get to monitor, right, your efforts, your activities, and ensure that whatever it is you are doing, right, and whatever work you are doing as a business analyst on that project, right, you are monitoring it to ensure that you're learning on it, you're learning from it rather, and there are improvement opportunities for you to get better on the job, right? So this is the BA planning and monitoring knowledge area. The next knowledge area that we'll be going to is elicitation and collaboration. For this is knowledge area that has to do with activities relating to gathering information from your stakeholders. Like I had mentioned in previous sessions, your stakeholders are either a group or an individual that may be impacted, that may have interest or have influence over your project. So they can either impact or be impacted by your project. They have influence or they have interest in your project. And when we look at stakeholders management properly as a different concept on its own, we're going to see how to manage them. But basically, what I need you to know about your stakeholders is that they are the ones who you primarily go to for information. Your requirements, your requirements validation, engagement with them, collaboration, they are your go-to people. In fact, without your stakeholders, you don't have your project. And that is the simple truth. So under this knowledge area, we also have 5 key tasks that you need to do. One, preparing for elicitation. Basically, what elicitation is getting or bringing out information from your stakeholders. So you have to prepare for it, right? What do I want to achieve from my elicitation? This is where you define the goal of your elicitation, identify the stakeholders that will be needed for each elicitation session, right? Identify the goals, write them down, identify the stakeholders, identify the activities that you need to carry out, and the style of elicitation that would help you. There are different techniques here for elicitation. We have we have brainstorming, we have mind mapping, we have workshops, right? We have focus groups, we have interviews. So this is where you have to determine which one would work for you. So as a skilled BA, this is where your expertise comes in, right? You then need to know which one would work best. Oh, interview will work best for one-on-ones, or should I do surveys? Should I bring my stakeholders together and do like a focus group? Should I do a workshop? Or should I do a brainstorming? You know, you have to know the blend of these techniques and how you get to use them in elicitation. And the parts where you understand all of these things and put them together is where you prepare for your elicitation, right? The next part after that is when you now conduct this elicitation properly. So this is where you now sit with your stakeholders, you know, to use your questioning tool to ask them questions to derive information from them. This is where conducting of elicitation comes in. And you can use different techniques for this, right? It could be workshop, it could be collaborative games, right? It could be interviews, it could be sending out surveys, depending on the particular context of the project, right? That's what will determine what you are going to use, the technique you're going to use to conduct this elicitation. Now, after you've conducted an elicitation, you get information, right? That is the end goal of conducting elicitation, is to get information. Now, that information is called elicitation result. Elicitation result. Now, the next task under this knowledge area is now to confirm this elicitation result. So it is basically you taking what you've gotten, documenting it, and then sending it back to your stakeholders. So this is what we discussed. This is what we had gathered during our last elicitation session that we conducted. Help me verify this and confirm that nothing has changed and everything is fine here. Now, you can either confirm your elicitation with your stakeholders, or you confirm your elicitation with your fellow business analyst, right? So this is where the peer-to-peer review comes in, right? Or you confirm your elicitation against existing processes, against existing documentations, right? So you check with their SOPs, you check with their existing process flows, you check with existing tools and systems that they have within the project context, right? Then after comparing and confirming that the elicitation results you've gotten are valid, the next thing is then to communicate the business analysis information, right? So this is basically, oh, I have confirmed that these results are confirmed and valid, right? You then communicate. So this is where you're now sending the information you've gathered to your stakeholders to say, the session that we've had, this is it, right? And here you are listing the different information you've gotten, you know, and you are putting them in a very understandable and digestible format so that your stakeholders can have access to it. Then the next task is then the stakeholder collaboration, right? So elicitation and collaboration as a knowledge area is an iterative process. So it's not something you do once and you stop. You continue doing it continuously so that you can get refined with the information that you've gotten. And this task is included in the knowledge area to cover the need for a business analyst to continue working. So you don't just do elicitation and collaboration and you stop. You go to them to refine your information. You go to them to clarify things as you're building. You go to them to analyze information. You go to them to analyze solutions as well, right? So your stakeholders are like your go-to people whenever you are running a business analysis project. Without them, without carrying them along, without them being in the picture, your project is bound to fail. The next knowledge area that we'll be looking at is requirements life cycle management. Requirements life cycle management. So for this particular knowledge area, we are going to be focusing on how we manage requirements throughout the process, throughout the project life cycle, right? From when we identified them, that is from when we elicited them from our stakeholders, that is when we got this information from our stakeholders, down to when we start implementing the project, down to when we are maintaining the project after the project has been delivered. We are now in post-deployment state. After we've deployed it, we are now managing and maintaining the project, right? Down to that point, how are we going to manage our requirements? because these requirements can be reused, they can come up for a different project. How do we manage them such that we are able to use them for the different purposes? Also, within this knowledge area, we also have 5 tasks, and the first one is the trace requirement. Trace requirement. So basically, requirement traceability involves understanding how to identify the requirements you've gathered or you've gotten in relation to the solution that was built. Okay, they've told you when you're doing your elicitation that they would want a um they would want a system, they want a system that someone can use Google to log into. Now you've built the project. You're going to then create test cases to say, I want to have a test case that would make me see, that will help me trace my requirement back to my solution. So did we actually have a sign in, a feature where I can sign in with Google on the solution? If yes, you've been able to trace that requirement, right? So you can trace backwards and you can trace forward. So tracing forward would be tracing your requirements to a solution, and tracing backwards would then be tracing from your solution back to your requirements, right? So this is what tracing of requirements means. Also, you get to maintain requirements. How do you store your requirements? Again, how do you manage them? How do you maintain them such that throughout the project life cycle, anybody can access this requirement and use them without necessarily having to contact you, or without going through any form of bureaucracies, right? Without going through any form of approval or anything. How can someone reuse these requirements for another project, right? Also, prioritization of requirements. All requirements cannot be deployed at the same time. When you're building a project, when you're building a system, you can't deploy every feature on that project at once. You have to prioritize, right? Now, this task is where you determine how you're going to prioritize projects. So there's something called a backlog that has the list of the entire thing we want to build, all the work that we want to build for our project. It has it. So as requirements keep coming in and we put them into the backlog, we then have to reprioritize to say this new one that is coming in, how does it rank alongside the ones that were existing before? Oh, we've gotten a requirement that we need to maybe build a system or a feature that allows us to maybe listen to music as we are working. I will now check this requirement against the existing requirements in my backlog and say, oh, on a scale of preference based on the prioritization framework that I'm using, we'll also learn about prioritization in details. If I'm using the impact, consideration, or ease, or maybe I'm using the t-shirt size, or I'm using the ranking or grouping, I'll then say, okay, with this is not top priority because there are other requirements that are top priority for us. We then rank it low and put it in our backlog to be fixed later, right? Then that is what prioritization of requirements actually mean. Then the next one is the access requirement changes. Access requirement changes. As a business analyst working on a project, requirements will always change. Take it from me, from experience, you've gathered requirements, you've signed off your documentations and everything. Stakeholders will come back to you and say, I want this done. I forgot about this. I didn't think about this initially, but please help us add this. Now, how do you access these changes that are coming in, right? Or situations where they've told you this and be like, no, 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 no. We didn't mean this. This was what we meant, right? Or you did not understand us properly. There's a slight, they'll tell you there's a slight change in this thing. Stakeholders are very interesting people, trust me. I am a stakeholder, you are a stakeholder, but we are very interesting because at some point we don't necessarily, or we don't always know what we want. So requirements are bound to change. It is your job as a business analyst to then know how you can evaluate this change, assess this change, the impact of this change. If I accept this change today, how would it impact the overall delivery of my project? How would it impact the change that is coming in, right? So this is your job in this task, to access the requirement change and know whether to accept it, to defer it, or to push it. Deferring it means to push it to another phase or just throw it into the backlog for a later time, or to totally reject it, right? Now, the next task here is then approval of requirements. So you've accepted a requirement. What would then be your process of approval? How do you approve requirements? Will you take your requirements to your project sponsors? Your project sponsor is like the top person within the project, right? They call the shots in the project. They are the number one decision maker within the project, right? Okay, yeah. So your project sponsors are or your project sponsor is the one that calls the top shot. That's like the key decision maker within your project. So how do you approve? Here you have to support stakeholders in ensuring that you go through the decision making process together, right? If ensuring that the governance within your project takes care of approvals, and it involves approval of requirements. So when the new requirements come in, how do we go about approving it to ensure that it is added to the project? This would definitely mean that on some occasions, your stakeholders have to provide clarity, have to give extra details, have to give extra information on your requirements before they can be considered for approval. The next stage we'll be going to, or the next knowledge area we'll be looking at, is strategy analysis. This knowledge area deals with understanding your business context, where you currently are, identifying the opportunities for change, and then developing the strategies to achieve that change. So there are four knowledge areas here. We have the analyzing of the current state. There is no progress within any project if you don't understand where you currently stand within your business, right? If you don't understand your current position within your business, you can't make project. Sorry, you can't make progress, right? So you need to analyze your current state, understand the current business context, understand the process involved, the stakeholders, the roles, the activities, and draw the assist flow or map the assist state. Then the next task here is to then define the future state. Having known the current state that we are in, where do we want to be? What is the to be state? Another name for future state is to be state, right? This is where we want to be with this change, right? Then the next thing is, I have known where I am. I have known where I want to go to. Clearly and explicitly defined, right? Now, there are definitely risks and barriers that would want to stop me from leaving where I am to where I need to be, right? This is These are called risks. So as a business analyst, one of your tasks under this knowledge area is to be able to identify different risks that would stop you from accessing your future state, right? Or from being in your future state. You identify this risk, you assess them, you come up with mitigation strategies or strategies that will help you nullify these risks, right? Then the next thing is now to define your change strategy. Once you've defined your assist, which is your current state, you've analyzed it, you've defined your future or your to-be state, then you perform a gap analysis. Of course, there's a gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. You define the gap, you analyze the gap, and come up with a change strategy. That is, come up with plans, right, that will take you from where you are to where you want to be. And this, my people, is why I love business analysis so much. You can do this for anything. You can do your strategy analysis for anything, for your personal business, for your own life as a person. Oh, I want to be a business analyst by the end of this year, a professional business analyst. Or I want to be certified. I want to have the CBAP or the PMP certification by the end of this year. What do I do? I realize where I am now. What do I even know about PMP? What do I know about CBAP? What are the things I know? What are the knowledge I have? Right? Good. You analyze that, you keep it. Where do I want to be by the end of December? I want to be able to, I want to be able to take the exam and pass it in one sitting. That is your future state. What are the risks that can stop you from accessing this? Probably financial constraint, because you have a 9 to 5 job, you might not have enough time to study. Risk could also be maybe not registering properly or not having enough work experience to write the CBAP exam. Your change strategy would now be, okay, one, I need to take away this risk. I need to mitigate this risk. Two, I need to study very, very hard. I need to do this for me to be able to achieve the future state. This is basically what the strategy analysis knowledge area is about. And as a BA, you are expected to do this for your project, right? The next knowledge area is now requirements analysis and design definition. In this knowledge area, we're focused on analyzing the requirements we've elicited from our stakeholders. Now you're not just analyzing, at first you just elicited requirements. Now you're analyzing them and you're translating these requirements into designs. Now, don't be confused when we say designs. Your design is not necessarily your graphic design. Design is anything that can pass for a solution or a component of a solution, right? So a design could be a prototype, a design could be a process flow, a design could be a model, a design could be a full-blown project, a design could be an architecture, a design could be anything that models the solution that you're trying to build, right? And now in this knowledge area, you also define the solution. So here we have specify and model the requirement. So after you've gotten the requirement, after you've analyzed the elicitation results, you are to refine these requirements into models, right? Into designs, right? And these designs, you need to be able to understand your requirement, understand your requirements to a very good level for you to be able to convert them into designs. Now, there are different techniques that can help you here. You have your process modeling, your process flow, your process mapping. You have your UML, your user case diagrams. You have your user stories. These are different things that help you to model your requirements, right? Now, the next task is verification of requirements. So you need to ensure that whatever requirements you want to model into a solution, you have to be sure that it has been verified and validated. That is the next task. You need to validate these requirements from your with your stakeholders, right? Then the next thing is now you then define solution options. So having understood the requirements, having analyzed it, and having created different models out of it, what are the different solutions or the different options I have that could help me solve this problem, that could help me create a solution for this particular challenge or for this particular issue we are facing within this project. This is where you define different solution options. Having verified, having specified your requirement, having validated it, right, you then come up with a range of options that will be communicated to your stakeholders for you to make decision on, right? Then here you then also define your requirements architecture, and then you analyze your potential value and you recommend solutions. So all the different solutions that you've been able to define, the solution options that you've been able to define, you now start checking their potential value against what it will cost to implement them. Again, you are looking for any solution that will bring your business the greatest value. So it wouldn't make sense for a potential value to be costed at maybe 12,000 euros and your the cost of implementing that solution is 30,000 euros. You are definitely not bringing any value to the business. You are even costing more. So you need to be able to analyze the potential value, and from this potential value that you've analyzed, you then recommend the best one to your stakeholders, right? Then we'll go to the next task, which is then solution evaluation. Now you've come up with the solution. You saw the journey we went through. We planned our process, we planned our approach, then we got requirements from our stakeholders to understand what they would need, right? Then we did our strategy analysis. Then we also determined how we are going to manage our requirements, Then we defined our solutions and our designs. Now we've built the solution. How do we then evaluate the solution? How do we assess the value that we got from the solution to be sure that it actually met the business needs? And this is where we measure the solution performance. This solution that we've built now, this system that has been integrated, this process that has been optimized, we now measure it to see if indeed it actually meets the intended value, if we can get the intended value from it. After that, we then analyze the performance measures. So the different measurements that we want to use to test the solution's performance, we analyze it to be sure that indeed these measures can give us a true picture of the performance of our solution. You can use a wrong measure, right, to test that your website is actually working, and you'll be very happy. Or imagine using social media shares and social media likes to as measures to test whether your website is bringing value to you. If you have so many social media likes and clicks and your website is not converting and sales are not coming in, you might be fooled and carried away that your solution actually brought in value. But no, that is a wrong measure. So you need to analyze the performance measures you've selected to be sure that it is actually indeed a valid measure to analyze the performance of your solution. Next thing is to assess your solution's limitation. Within my solution, it is not giving me the correct value, the expected value. Within the solution, what else are we not doing right? What are the things that we need to improve on? What is it about the solution that is not making us get the peak performance, that's not allowing us get the peak value from it, right? After doing this, it's also possible that what is not allowing you get value from your solution is your business context, your enterprise, the limitations around your business. Oh, culturally, people are not interested in this kind of solutions. Culturally, people don't like using app. This solution was built for the service staff within your organization, and they're not so technologically inclined. So you are still interested in using their book and paper method, right? Book and pen method. Whereas you've not been able to move them move them culturally, move them psychologically to understanding and embracing technological tools, right? Now you assess the limitations that your solution is facing within your enterprise. And after this analysis of the solution's limitation and analysis of the enterprise's limitation, you then recommend action. So what are we going to do next? Oh, I think we should hold an organizational training here. I think we need to improve this feature. I think we need to add this. I think we need to add that. And you mediate these negotiations between your stakeholders. And boom, you must have completed the recommend action task under the solution evaluation knowledge area. So these are the 6 knowledge areas within business analysis. And as you continue to work and improve yourself as a business analyst, right, you would meet each of these knowledge areas. You would meet each of the tasks that I've described in details for each of these knowledge areas. And you would also meet different techniques that you'll be applying in these tasks, right? Understand the flow. A knowledge area, a task, and then the techniques within it, right? When we look at techniques, you're going to be able to see how some of these techniques apply to some of these tasks and the knowledge areas they belong to. So that is it. We've come to the end of class for today. If there are any questions, I will be more than happy and available to give answers to them. I hope if you've watched this far, you're able to learn a thing or two about business analysis knowledge areas. And at this point, I want to thank you for following this far. I want to thank you for watching. I want to implore again to you to please subscribe to the channel if you've not. Also, share these videos with your friends, let them learn as well, and like the video, engage, ask questions, and I'll catch you in the next video where we'll talk about the different business analysis techniques and some common terms that you'll be hearing often and often and often in the practice of business analysis. Until then, do have a great day, a great evening, and remember to stay blessed. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.